How many of you guys enjoy negotiating? Raise your hand. How many of you guys think negotiation gives me anxiety, stresses me out, makes me uncomfortable? I hate negotiating. Like going to the used car lot is like my worst fear. I don't want to do that stuff. Just me? Okay, cool. What we're going to learn today are going to be some very valuable tips that are going to help alleviate a lot of that stress, a lot of that anxiety that you have. And for those of you that enjoy negotiating, you're going to be able to take it even further. We're going to be way more effective with our negotiating. So what I'm going to be teaching you today is stuff that I've learned over years and years of coaching and reading books and implementing these in my own businesses to have a lot of success with this. So recently, I've gotten a commission of 18% of the purchase price. I've negotiated my largest commission ever this year of $57,000 on a single transaction. I also bought a property for my own investment business at 60% of the appraised value. So these are some of the things that you can get when you learn how to negotiate properly, right? So to start this off, I want to kind of illustrate another quick story. So a visitor walks into the mental health asylum and he says, I want to speak to the director. And the director comes out and he says, Mr. Director, I have a question for you. Like, how do you know when to institutionalize someone? And the director said, well, we have a very clear process for that. We fill a bathtub full of water, and then we give them a teaspoon, a teacup, and a bucket. And we tell them to empty the bathtub. And the visitor said, okay. All right, so a normal person would take the bucket and empty the bathtub. And the director said, no, a normal person would just unplug the bathtub. Would you like a bed near the stairs or by the window? So I tell that story to illustrate a point. A lot of times we're given a couple solutions, or we think there's a couple solutions to somebody's problem, but that's not in reality what is going to get this deal done, right? What in reality is going to get the deal done is something that you need to uncover through negotiating with your counterpart. Now, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today has to do with the words that you're saying and getting into different dialogues and stuff like that. But first, I want to set you guys up so you guys understand communication. There's a famous formula called 7-38-55. 7-38-55. Okay, so back in 1965, Dr. Robert Merhibian was a UCLA professor. He did a study and he published this in a journal saying that communication was 7% words, 38% tone of voice and inflection in your voice, and 55% body language and facial expression. Okay, so this was groundbreaking. Nobody thought in a million years that the words that I'm saying are not the major component of communication, right? And so many of us, 7-38-55, that's 93% is nonverbal, is how we're communicating with people. Trust me, guys, this works. So what we're first going to focus on today is the 55% of your body language, your facial expressions. Then we're going to move quickly to 38%, your tone of voice and your inflection. And then we are going to talk a lot about that 7% because the words do matter. That's what's coming out of your mouth. All right, so body language. This is going to be pretty quick. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? If I'm meeting with someone or I'm engaging in a conversation at an appointment or I'm in a negotiation with somebody, what do I want to do with my body language? Do I want to slouch over and kind of hunch back or slouch in my chair or look down at the ground, or do I want to fold my arms or put my hands on my hips? Do I want to do any of that body language if I'm negotiating with somebody? No. We want to be upright. We want to stand up straight. We want to be relaxed. We want to be open. We want to be friendly, right? We want to be inviting. We want to encourage trust, right? And communication and stuff like that, right? So that's what we want to do. And so body language also has to do with our facial expressions, right? And be very assertive and stuff like that. No, we want to have a smile on our faces, right? We want to smile. We want to be enjoyable. We want to be positive to be around. In fact, when I first started my real estate journey as an agent, and I was going into trainings and going to my broker's offices and meeting with other people and doing all this networking, I always made it a point to put a smile on my face. In fact, many of the people at the office They didn't even know my name. They just know I'm the guy that's always smiling, right? And I did that for a reason, because I wanted to communicate with other people that, hey, I want to get to know you. I'm a friendly person. I want to network. I want to do more deals. I want to find out what you guys know and how to do this business better, right? So I go in there with a smile, and I'll never forget this one time this lady came over and said, hey, what's your secret? You're always so happy. I stopped and I thought about it, and I was like, I do feel kind of happy, but I decided to smile before I felt happy. And I was like, you know what? I'm just intentionally smiling. And later I found out through a Tony Robbins book that what we're doing in the physical world affects our mental world, right? I can change my body language and I can feel something different in my brain. So the physical affects the mental. And so that was something that I learned there. And so how this is going to play in is when we have the right body language with a 55%, that's going to trickle down to our tone of voice. That's going to trickle down to the words that we're saying. It's all going to follow, right? And so body language is by far the most important, so we got to get that right first. But that's pretty easy. It's self-explanatory. We know what we need to do with our body to communicate effectively. So tone of voice. Do we want to have a stern, assertive tone of voice? Do we want to yell and scream? Or do we want to be relaxed and easygoing and friendly and encouraging and positive, right? And part of the smiling thing is we're going to do a quick example of how this works. Let me tell you, I'm going to put you guys into a common scenario that us agents are in. You guys are showing properties. There's very little inventory on the market right now. Maybe you're working with a family member that has been hounding you every weekend to see properties, maybe for the last 6 months. You're showing property after property after property. The perfect property has yet to come out until this very day. She sees a property that's exactly what they're looking for. They're ready to go. Let's put an offer. I have to have this house. You've been doing this for 6 months. Today's the day. You're so excited. We finally found the house. Let's go. You call up the agent, and she says, we have 10 offers on the property. We're selecting the highest and the best in the next hour. Now what? Now you're frustrated, you're angry, you're feeling so upset that now you're up against the wall, this tight timeline. You've spent all this time to get to this point, and now you have 1 shot in 11 to land this deal and get your family member the house that she wants. And not to mention, you can't quit on your family member because you're going to see her at every single holiday, and you'll never hear the end of it, right? So you have to do this. And you're in this tough spot. And so if you were just following your emotion on this call, and I don't have a smile on my face, and I'm upset, and I'm angry, and I tell you the exact thing that you need to say next to this agent, and it's this: what is it going to take to buy this house? Say it with me. Don't smile. What is it going to take to buy this house? What is it going to take to buy this house? Or maybe you want to be a little bit more assertive and you say, what is it going to take to buy this house? And you use the iron fist of authority. I want this house. What's the other agent going to do? She's likely, if she doesn't hang up on you then, she's going to say, I can't disclose any of the other offers of the other house, right? And I'll talk to you later, right? But if, before I make that phone call, and this is what I do on every single one of my phone calls, before I dial the phone, I smile. Even if I don't feel happy, right? I smile, because what's going to happen is my tone of voice is going to be different when I'm smiling. So smile with me, put the phone up to your ear, everybody in here, and smile. What is it going to take to buy this house? What is it going to take to buy this house? Does that sound a little bit better? Does that sound positive and more playful and encouraging? That's going to elicit a better response. So that's how this stuff at the beginning is going to work here, guys. Okay? So that's your 55 and your 38%. And now what everybody's been waiting for, let's talk about those 7% of words. Now, mind you, if you don't get that stuff right at the beginning, the words don't really matter, right? Okay, so words. So all of this stuff that I've got here, I didn't make up myself. So we give credit to where credit's due. A lot of this stuff is from Christopher Voss. He wrote a book called Never Split the Difference in 2016. He spent 20 years as an FBI hostage negotiator. Like, this guy has been in the most dire of negotiations in the entire world, and he's learned the best and most effective tactics to handle these things. And he calls what his methodology is called tactical empathy. And so it's way different than any other strategy that was previously used. The most popular business strategy for negotiation before this was a book called Getting to Yes. You know, it was all about trying to get the customer to say yes, try to get them to say yes. You know, everybody's familiar with this now. Like, it doesn't work. And yet we're still training people how to do this. So Chris took this concept that they used in the FBI, and now you can apply it to business. You can apply it to your relationships, and it does magic in those conversations, right? So we're going to talk about 5 of the key components of his strategy and what to say and how to say it and all that stuff to get this done. I'll start with the first 3 he calls as the quick 2-1. So if you think of, like, you know, you're in a boxing ring, you go jab, jab, punch, right? That's the quick 2-1 is a quick way to knock out your opponent in the boxing ring, right? So he uses these first 3 concepts as that. Like, that's your go-to. And the 1 is called labeling, the 2 is called mirroring, and 3rd is dynamic silence. So that's your quick 2-1. This is like the core concept of what you're going to be implementing when you're negotiating with somebody. So labeling is super easy, right? Most of the time it starts with it seems like or it looks like is what you're saying, okay? So you're listening to what somebody is saying, and you just say what you describe the emotion or what they're feeling or what they're dealing with. So I just had an agent on my team list a property that we knew was $100,000 overpriced. We knew this going in. We tried to use logic to tell the client that this is not what it's worth. It's worth $100,000 less. He said, well, okay, we're going to go to another agent then that will list it for this. And so it's such a high priced property that we didn't want to lose the small percentage chance that this thing would maybe sell and we miss, you know, a $40,000 commission or something like that. So we go ahead and list it, and now the client's freaking out. It's been on the market for 2 months. There's been like 2 showings, and we keep beating him over the head with the logic that it's just not worth that, right? And he's freaking out, he's agitated. Well, what we did was we applied labeling. And so next time he was upset and saying, hey, I want you guys, I'm so upset there's no showings on this property. I want you guys to start doing open houses. I want you to send out more marketing. We need to get this sold. Instead of saying anything about price reduction or anything like that, my agent said, it seems like you're a little irritated about this. It seems like you're a little upset by what's going on. And then she used dynamic silence, shut up. And what happened was the client calmed down instantly. You know, that actually she was surprised that worked, because it's like you wouldn't think that just saying something simple like that. But what Chris Voss talks about in the book is all the neuroscience around negotiating and emotions and stuff like that, is that when you can label their emotion, they feel understood, and it instantly de-escalates the situation or the emotion that they're experiencing. So labeling is super, super powerful. If I can say it seems like you're upset, or it seems like that's not going to work, or it looks like we're having trouble getting to a deal, and I can shut up, that's going to take their defenses down. That's going to cool their emotions off. In fact, he goes into talking about how if you volunteer to work at like a suicide crisis hotline, the script that you talk to when people call in never have the solution. It doesn't say, oh, tell that person he just needs to settle down, or tell that person he needs to go for a walk, or go exercise, or drink a glass of water, or, you know, it doesn't say anything about that, right? What it says is you need to label what they're feeling. It seems like you're a little stressed out right now. And when we do that, the neurochemistry shows us that that's going to take down their emotions and kind of get them into a place of comfort with you. They feel understood and liked, and rapport is starting to build, right? So we want to do labeling. Mirroring is a little bit similar. It's a little bit different. Mirroring is going to feel really goofy the first time you do it. It's literally just repeating the last 3 to 5 words that they said. So if they said, I need $100,000 for my house, you need $100,000 for your house? And then what dynamic silence is right behind that. And so you feel goofy doing that, but they're not going to know that you're implementing this strategy. It's not going to come across that way, trust me. As much as you feel like you're going to look goofy doing this, it's not. What's going to happen is they're going to feel a connection that you heard them, right? You understood what they said. And now, because you've left silence in the back end, they're going to give you more information. And what negotiation is all about is getting more information from the other party. Having them, they've got all of these cards on the table, and you're trying to get them to overturn those cards, right? And that's the whole name of the game, is get them talking, build trust, build connection through tactical empathy. And that's how we do it, through labeling and mirroring with dynamic silence to follow. So what is dynamic silence? That was dynamic silence. Can silence be awkward? It can be very awkward silence, right? You hear it all the time. Nobody wants to be in awkward silence. But because we're training in this, guess who's going to break first? The other party. Your counterpart is going to break the silence, right? So this is going to be really awkward for some of you the first time you implement this. But when you use dynamic silence, what I want you to do in your head, and what I just did right there, was I counted to 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, all the way up to 10 1,000. And I guarantee you, by the time you get to 10 1,000s, the other side's going to start talking. And usually they're going to start giving you more information. They're going to elaborate on what was just talked about or what was just said, right? You're getting them to turn over more cards because now they feel uncomfortable. They don't want to sit in silence, right? But you're training in it right now. So it's a very, very good tactic to use. The funnest ways to practice this is, you guys are getting calls from telemarketers all the time. It is so fun to start answering these calls and doing all of these things because you're getting practice live with someone, and they aren't trained in this. They're trained to get you to say, to follow this script. And when you start doing it, it's a lot of fun. So that's dynamic silence. Number 4 is no-oriented questions. I want to orient all my questions to no, because what are the telemarketers doing? They're calling and say, is now a good time to talk to you? Yes. Does that sound like a good plan for you? Yes. Can I have your credit card information? Yes. Right? Everything they've said has designed you to say yes. That's what all the old training is. So in our brains, we are highly defensive when it comes to someone asking us a question that demands a yes answer, right? All of our defenses are going up, right? We don't feel safe talking to somebody that is trying to get us to say yes all the time. So we need to orient all of our questions to have a no answer. So every time I call somebody, what was the first thing that I said I did? I smile, right? The second thing that I do every single time is I say, is now a bad time? It allows them to say no. It allows them to say no. That's the first thing out of their mouth, is no. You know how much different our conversation can now proceed? Because I was respectful and thought that maybe this would be a bad time for them. So I'm going to let them tell me that it is, if in fact it is. And every now and then somebody says it is a bad time. I was like, oh, great. Let's schedule another call. But most of the time they say no, and they're very relaxed, right? All their defenses went down. They feel a level of trust that I'm a safe person to tell no to. That's a big deal. I can tell this person no, and that's okay. That's trust, that's collaboration, that's rapport. So every time we ask a question, it needs to be no-oriented. That's really important. So does this sound like a bad deal? No. Does this deal sound unfair? No. Number 5 is talking about a calibrated question. Calibrated questions. We're going to use calibrated questions once we get enough information to be able to drive deep on something, or if we're at like kind of an impassable point in the negotiation. A calibrated question is very powerful to put the onus back on them to come up with a solution. So calibrated questions include things that a reporter would ask. How, what, when, where. Okay, you want to start your questions with these words. Okay, again, somebody says, I want $100,000 for my house. How can I make that work? How can we make that work? Or why is that important to you? Or where can we find some middle ground? I want to ask that question, and then dynamic silence right behind it again, right? And so I want to ask something that's open-ended. I don't want to ask these closed-ended questions that are going to get you a one-word answer. You see this a lot if some of you have kids that are going back to school. How was your day at school? It's good, right? It's good, right? Tell me about the best time. Tell me about the best thing you did today at school. That gives you a different answer, right? They can tell you a story that you want to hear, something like that. So we want to ask open-ended questions, calibrated questions, to be able to get past some of these sticking points in negotiations. One of my favorite negotiation stories, and it involves someone in this room. His name's Kevin. And not too long ago, Kevin was selling a property. Okay, he's selling one of his rental properties. And I was the buyer's agent. So we had a client who's out in California, and she's buying this rental property here in St. Louis from Kevin, and I'm the agent. So he's dealing with me, and we're in the negotiation, right? And we had just gotten inspections done. And for whatever reason, Kevin and even Cammie, his wife, were very anxious to see, what's going on with the inspections? When is this going to be resolved? What's happening? Keeps reaching out to me and stuff. This was like a Monday afternoon, I remember pretty vividly. I'm like, I got to get back to them. So I call my client. We work through the inspections, no problem. She signs off saying, we're good to go on inspections. But I want to have a little fun with Kevin. And so I had this bid from the property management company that said all the things that they were going to renovate in this property before it needed to be rented out again. And now we knew it needed some work, but it was going to, paint, carpet, some kitchen stuff, bathroom stuff, some minor electrical, minor plumbing. There was an itemized list of things that add up to $13,000. So right before I got into the car, I forwarded that email to Kevin, and I called Kevin back. And I say, is now a bad time? He said, no, of course not. I want to figure out what's going on with inspections. And listen to how this conversation is going to go, because I'm going to utilize all the things that I just taught you guys in this story. One thing I didn't tell you is, whenever you have bad news for someone, you need to prepare them for what you're going to say next, okay? So I never want to just come out with the bad news that might be bad for them. That'd be like me walking up to somebody, turned around, and then punching them in the stomach, right? You want to say, hey, I'm about to punch you in the gut. And then that way they can just firm up, and they're going to take it a lot better if you do it that way. Just trust me, okay? So the next thing out of my mouth is, you're not going to like what I'm going to say next. And Kevin's like, lets the air out, but now he's relaxed. He can take the bad news. I say, I just sent you an email with about $13,000 worth of repairs that my client's going to be doing on this property. He opens it up. He's like, $13,000. He's like, this is paint, this is flooring, these things, these are just renovations, Dave. I'm like, these are just renovations? Yeah, it looks like there's no repairs needed. No repairs needed? So then we're kind of at an awkward silence there, and I'm like, how can we make this work? Asking him, right? I've dropped a $13,000 number in his inbox, right? In reality, these weren't really inspection items. I was just having some fun with them. And he's like, well, I guess just to make this thing work, I'd be willing to give $1,000. $1,000? It's like, well, Dave, what do you want me to do, man? This isn't an inspection report. This is a bid for a contractor, right? I go, how am I supposed to take that back to my client? He's like, what do I need, $2,000 here? $2,000? How are we going to get this deal done, Kevin? We've gotten all the way to this point. How are we going to get this done? He's like, hold on, let me get Cammie. Cammie, they're wanting $13,000. I said I'd go to $2,000. Cammie's now stressing out. Seems like you guys are really upset about this. Yeah, I mean, we just want to get this house sold, and we're getting haggled over all this stuff. Seems like you feel like you're haggled right now. Yes, yeah, yeah. Would they take 3,000? 3,000? Yeah, 3,000, because they knew about all this stuff before we even got into this contract. This isn't stuff that should be repaired. Yada yada yada. Yeah, it's like, seems like you have a reason behind 3,000. Yeah, what is it going to take to get this deal done? We'll come up to 3,500. And I remember at that point, we were like 20 minutes into this conversation. And I was like, here's what I'm going to do, Kevin. I'm going to take your 3,500 and I'm going to give it back to you, because this is all just fun and games. They already signed the inspection notice. We're clear to close. We're good to go. Yeah, just having some fun. But I got $3,500 out of something that should have been zero, just practicing some negotiation tactics from the books that I've read and the experience that I've had and what I've taught you right there, just by using that stuff. I never once, except for sending over that report that had a number on a paper, I never once offered a number, okay? I let the other party continue to negotiate against themselves by asking open-ended questions, by labeling and mirroring when they got defensive or upset, right? By using dynamic silence to keep the other side talking and giving information and giving solutions, while I simply sat back and was a good listener and also applied tactical empathy. Does that make sense how you guys can do this in your own business? Awesome. That's all I got for you guys.